week, Burkina Faso in West Africa experienced a military overthrow of its interim government just weeks before presidential elections were meant to take place in that country. Both the interim president, Michel Kafando, and Prime Minister Zida were arrested by Presidential Guard members loyal to former Burkina Faso presidential Blaise Compaore. On Friday, Senegal's President Macky Sali, along with Boni Yayi of Benin, were expected in Burkina Faso to mediate. All right, now to just shed a little bit more light and to give us some explanation of what is going on there is senior researcher for West Africa in the Africa Conflict Prevention Program at the Institute for Security Studies, David Zounmenou. David, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you here on the program.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers as well.
Now, David, it was reported that the coup supporters attacked the hotel where the mediation talks are being held. How is the atmosphere in the country after the weekend?
The atmosphere in the country remained very tense. So are the negotiations as well to try and find a solution to this stupid coup that the Burkina Faso qualified as one of the most stupid coup happened in the history of the country, because, as you said, it took place just weeks before the election took place. But this morning already, President Macky from Senegal and Yayi Boni from Benin managed to put forward a proposal articulated around 4 key points that will help the country to renew its transition. The first one is actually to reinstate the transition government with President Kafando in his position. Another one is to pass an amnesty law to protect the military junta, who has accepted if he accepts to relinquish control of power, and finally to seek for the release of Zida, the prime minister, who is still held and kept under custody by the military officers, and then plan the election or postpone the election for the 22nd of November.
Now, the coup is associated with Blaise Compaore's loyalists. Is he still popular in the country?
No, I think Compaore has been rejected by a large part of the population in Burkina Faso because of his insistence to remain in power beyond his constitutional term limit, in addition to having spent almost 27 years in power. But there are contentious issues that remain for the transition to sort out because of the message that they received from the protesters last year in October, when Compaore was forced into exile in Côte d'Ivoire. Those issues includes the dissolution of the presidential guard, which has become a very disturbing factor in the political process of the country, but also having been involved in a series of political assassination of the country. So many Burkinabe actually didn't want them to be associated to the new political dispensations. And in addition to that, you have investigation into those who have managed to kill Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso in 1987, and the justice is now trying to identify those who are responsible and bring them to book. But I think those issues were not really accepted to the military, and the edge one to that is of the decision by the transitional government to exclude former members of Compaore party, barring them from participating in the electoral process. So these are some of the issues upon which they act, but it's not that Compaore is popular and he will be reinstated through this coup.
What is the wide consensus around the military who took over the country? Is there any chance that Compaore will return? I mean, seeing that the RSP are linked to him.
No, I think it would be very dangerous for the coup leaders to bring Compaore back to power. And I think the mediation did not even envisage that. What they are hoping for is to return the transition government under the leadership of Michel Kafando to power with all the transition institutions, and give them a time frame, even extending the transition for a couple of weeks to allow the election to take place. So even Compaore himself would not like to be reinstated as a president, because that will simply add oil to the fire and plunge Burkina Faso into instability.
You know, when we look back at the history of Burkina Faso, coups have really been a common phenomenon. It's been something that's happened over and over again. What needs to take place for the country to actually experience democratically elected leaders?
You're right, Leah, and I think Burkina Faso experiences at least 6 coups, successful coups, and many other attempts. Some of them claim life of political leaders, activists, journalists, and ordinary citizens with a level of impunity never seen anywhere else in the West African region. So I think the decision here is simply to engage in the reform of the security sector, particularly the reform of the army, and extract them from the political life. I think it has been too long that the military has become a backbone of a political life of Burkina Faso, with a very dramatic consequences for the development, for peace, and for social cohesion of the country. So one of the bone of contention is how to demilitarize the political process in Burkina Faso and help the country to engage decisively on the path of democracy, consolidating the institution and reestablish the authority, the civilian authorities, power over the military establishment. That has always been the problem with Burkina Faso and has already resulted in a coup. I hope this one is going to be the last, and the transition will lead into genuine democracy that the majority of the citizens, particularly the youth in Burkina Faso, are hoping for.
All right, David, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you very much for coming in and explaining the situation to us there in Burkina Faso. And this was Dr. David Zounmenou, who is a senior researcher for the Institute of Security Studies. Thank you again.